Welcome! Scrap and Stamp Canada has a blog hop and challenge each month that features different themes. This month, it's all about watercolor. For my project today, I chose to use the Wreath Builder Bundle from Gina Designs to show you an easy way to get a faux watercolor look. This bundle includes a 6x8 stamp set filled with cute floral images that are the perfect size to create your wreath. It also comes with 2 templates in different sizes, 3 3/4 squared and 4-inch squared. I'm using the 4-inch size today. I'm using mixed media paper, which I've got loaded in my MISTI and is ready to go. To start with your wreath building, it's always important to make sure your cardstock or paper is in the square orientation and not in the diamond direction. I chose one of the floral stamps, lined it up, and picked it up with the MISTI door. For my coloring, I chose a variety of distress ink watercolors, but any water-based inks or markers would work for this technique. I inked up the stamp with picked raspberry and added a bit of seedless preserves to the bottom. Now all you have to do is wet the ink with a damp paintbrush, or in my case a water brush. Just add enough water that the ink starts to pool or bead. If you use too much water, the image will become distorted, which is also a very cool look, just not what I wanted. I gave light pressure to stamp down and gave it a second for the ink to absorb into the paper. The results will never be the same, which is what I love about this technique. I continued stamping the same image by rotating the paper within the template. I did give the stamp a quick dry between each stamping to remove any excess water. Once the flower is stamped, you can see the cool results and see your wreath start to take shape. I love all the variations you get by adding more or less water. The next image I chose was a leafy branch. I positioned it beside one of the flowers, picked it up, and used my 2 favorite greens, crushed olive and peeled paint. I inked it up in the same way, using the lightest shade first, adding the darker, adding the water, and stamping down lightly. To fill in the gaps of the wreath without adding another bright color, I used a berry branch type image with antique linen. It's hard to see here, but it turned out great, and it also gave a rustic feel to the wreath. Continuing on in the same way, making sure my paper was always in the square orientation, I chose a tiny flower and used wild honey to ink it up, adding a bit of water and stamping it down. Very, very easy. After the last tiny flower was stamped, I decided to fill in the center portion of the wreath a bit more. I felt it was a little bit empty. So I chose a double leaf image and used peeled paint ink only, added the water and continued stamping. By using only one color of ink, it just gave a darker result. And this is the final result. You get lots of variation in the colors, a fairly crisp image, yet still has that watercolored look. For the sentiment, I chose one of the circle images and decided to heat emboss. I used an anti-static bag on the cardstock first, and I'm using metallic brass embossing powder from Wow. I'm addicted to this shade. After inking up the image with Versamark ink, I stamped down and added the embossing powder. Before heat setting, I added the sentiment inside the circle to avoid too much warping from the heat tool. I also decided to add a little heart image inside the circle as well. This image comes from the same stamp set, and because the top of the sentiment looked a little blank, I decided to stamp the heart again but this time I just used an acrylic block just to save a little bit of time. I then heat set everything with my heat gun until it was shiny and smooth. Heat embossing is always one of my favorite parts of card making. I took out a set of circle dies from Hero Arts, picked one that fit the circle sentiment perfectly, and die cut that out. I also decided to use a stitched square die on the wreath panel. This didn't reduce the size very much, but it added that great stitched detail. I created a 4x4-inch card base out of craft cardstock. The final size of the wreath panel was about 3 3/4 by 3 3/4, and I love having about a 1/4-inch reveal all the way around. To keep with a more rustic fall feel, I went through my stash and found some natural twine. I made a nest on the panel by using washi tape to hold one end down, twirl the twine around, and adhere the other end. I just find this way works best for me. I added foam adhesive to the sentiment circle and placed it over top of the twine. I also added a ton of foam tape to the wreath panel and adhered that to the card base. And that's it. I love the way this turned out. Thanks for stopping by. Please check out my blog for all the hop details. See you soon. Bye.